And let's finish this, the 10th and penultimate chapter of The Spell of the Sorcerer's Skull. Johnny has left the crucifix with a knocked out Father Higgins. He doesn't know where Fergie is, and he is going to try and use Latin prayer to free the professor, hoping against hope that the book that he carries is as blessed as that crucifix was. We'll pick up where we left off. If he expected the house to disappear, he was disappointed. It was still there. This is crazy, this is crazy, thought Johnny. Absolutely crazy. He flipped a page and read more. Suscipit Dominus Sacrificum de manibus suis ad laudem et gloriam nominis tuae. Johnny stopped reading. He stopped because a small, cold, glowing object had appeared on the page that he held before him. The skull, grinning with malice, eyes lit by tiny red dots of fire, hovered in the flashlight's pale beam, and a harsh, pitiless voice burst inside Johnny's brain. "No one will cheat me of my vengeance, which will be visited upon all, even the seventh son of the seventh son. Come, foolish child, and see what I have prepared, for the way of the transgressor is hard, and the lamp of the inquisitous shall be put out." Johnny's arms dropped to his sides. The book fell into the mud at his feet, and the flashlight rolled away down the hill. Jerked forward by an irresistible force, Johnny tottered up toward the phantom mansion. He was being led to the lighted window, and he was forced to stop. Invisible hands seized his shoulders and shoved him rudely forward until his face was almost touching the glass. He wanted to close his eyes, but he couldn't. He had to watch. The professor slept on, sunk into the deep leather armchair, and as Johnny had feared, the scene that now began to unfold was just like the one he had seen in the dark, cold room in the Fitzwilliam Inn. The yellow flame in the oil lamp's chimney dwindled to a sputtering blue point. The flames in the fireplace wavered, shrank, died out, and as the door at the back of the room began to open, the shadowy form moved into the room. "No! No!" Johnny screamed, but the scream burst in his head. He couldn't yell or twitch his nose or move a muscle of his body. The thing was hovering over the professor, bending horribly close to him. The shadowy hand was creeping toward the professor's face. "Ah!" The air was split by a loud, violent, bull-like bellowing. Up the road charged Father Higgins. In his hand he gripped the silver crucifix. He held it high over his head like a banner, and the chain clinked and shimmered in the air. The big priest's arm was around Johnny's shoulder now, and he felt the cold metal pressed to his forehead. Suddenly he could move. Reeling backward, he turned and watched as Father Higgins dashed madly to the front door of the mansion, dropped to his knees, and laid the crucifix down on the stone doorstep. In a loud, angry, challenging voice, he started chanting, "I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity, with invocations of the same, the three in one, and one in three, and bursting from the spiced tomb, the riding up the heavenly way, the coming at the day of doom, I bind unto myself today." As soon as the last word of this incantation was out of Father Higgins' mouth, the solid-looking mansion began to waver and shimmer. It looked like something seen through a windshield of a car in the rain, and then it was gone, and in its place stood the dumpy boarded-up chapel. Silence. The moon slid out from behind a cloud, and a pale ray lit the front door of the chapel. Father Higgins knelt motionless, the silver cross clenched tight in his hand. Johnny could hear his heavy-labored breathing. There came a scuttering, crunching sound, and the chapel door was yanked inward. Professor Childermass stepped out over the doorsill. He looked, dazed, and glanced this way and that. Suddenly he saw Father Higgins kneeling in the mud in front of him, and he let out a joyful, croaking yell. "Higgy!" he screeched, rushing forward and throwing his arms around his friend. "Higgy, what on earth are you doing here? For that matter, what am I doing here, eh? What's going on? Is that John over there? John, you're all wet. Your grandmother will have a fit." The professor paused and looked down at the priest, who still knelt motionless before him. Father Higgins was crying now. Tears were streaming down his grisly cheeks, but the professor was not feeling weepy. He was looking more annoyed by the second. "For the love of Pete," he roared, "will somebody please tell me what the devil is going on?" And that is the end of Chapter 10.